Y'all had them. Hey, look, the thing we had to see y'all twice a year. We already knew that was tough.
Yeah,
Bottom line,
those were good
coming
games for sure.
in the same conference, and it's like, oh man, we got to play these jokers twice a year, every year.
Guys, let me set this up because we got a lot to talk about. So
Set it up.
yeah, so first of all, thanks for doing this. So
Appreciate it.
1984 was a big year. That was the year Orwell wrote his book about this year. We had Blockbuster and Errol's video stores opening up. We had delivery pizza for the first time. Run DMC was hip hop was just getting established. So it was like Prince and Michael Jackson were tearing up the radio. It was everything. But for us, 1984 was it was senior year of high school, and I know Frankie played football, but for I'm sure for Calvin and Derrick that was our time in basketball. I had never started at Robinson. I didn't play much at all my junior year, and my sister was starting point guard on the state championship team for 2 years. So it was supposed to be my year to play. So I was looking forward to it. I know Calvin. TC was so loaded. He could have transferred to Robinson and started as a sophomore. You had to wait in line over there, and so this was his time to make his run. I know Frankie, he had a lot to prove because they were on probation the year before. Many people think that was one of the best teams Mount Vernon ever had the year before. So they were coming back, with a great team. And Derrick, coached by his dad, Lake Braddock had never had a great team, but they finally had a loaded team. They had Derrick and they had Derrick Turner, they had Charles Small, and they had Vince Santavica, and they had Mike Newell. And Greg Smith. They had a legitimate lineup. They had size. So, it was a great Final Four that year. I remember, Lake Braddock played Jefferson. Jefferson was definitely a dark horse. We had beaten Jefferson that year, and then TC and Mount Vernon in the other semifinal. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of set that up. You guys, TC and Lake Braddock had fought all year long in our district. Woodson was in there trying, but it was TC Lake Braddock all year. Mount Vernon was fighting Lee and Hayfield that year in the Gunston, but it was those were the two toughest districts, and it wasn't years later the kids started going to private school to play basketball, but at that time, even you guys were all could have gone anywhere you want to and play. Frankie went to another public school, but there was like no desire to go to private school. Gerald and Derrick had gone to Flint Hill, but that was just getting started. Most people, we wanted to play public school ball. We wanted to be at Robinson for the Final Four. So anyway, why don't we start with, Calvin, why don't you kind of set it up? I know, like I said before, you guys had finished second in state the year before. You were in the mix a little bit, but there was a lot of seniors the year before. What was your favorite mind going into that season? And maybe even take us back. You started for travel basketball, county. Where'd you play and all that stuff?
Oh man, coming up, and Frank can attest to this, man. We started in the rec leagues, man, in the rec leagues in Alexandria, because Frank, he was deep with Court Kelly. I was deep with Charles Houston, and that's how I first met Frank. And then we would go through some rec league. And we were just starting out then. We were young. Like just learning the game, trying to develop our games and stuff. And then from there, I actually didn't play ball no more until my my 10th grade year at TC, because after rec league, I got cut my 8th grade year at GW.
Is that right?
Yep, I got cut my 8th grade year at GW, and that team had Joe King, Carlos Martin,
Eric Galloway,
Mitchell, Eric Galloway, all them jokers. So Hammond was our big rivalry. I used to play soccer, give or take, back in the day, and I was coming off a knee injury, and which I wasn't fully recovered. So in 8th grade, when coach brought me out there, he was like, I just didn't pass, whatever. Long story short, Coach Warden was a teacher at GW, and he used to come by there, and Coach Campbell was the coach at GW. So he was like his assistant. He told me, he said, don't worry about it, come out JV next year. Story wrote itself. I came out there, Coach Warden gave me the go, let me do my thing. Got moved up after my JV year. Me, E, and just me and E got moved up to the senior year. That was 82.
That was a crazy JV team. That
Yeah,
TC
that
team.
JV team. We was the only undefeated team
It's crazy.
in JV history. No JV team had ever went undefeated, and we did. And then that next year, but that year we had got moved up was the year of the state finals, 83. And you know how that goes. So once came 84, that was we just knew it was our time.
Yeah.
Nobody was gonna stop us. We were favored in the county, but we knew Derrick and them had a squad, so we had to go through Lake Braddock. That was twice a year.
Yeah.
That was given.
Yeah.
That wasn't gonna happen. It wasn't gonna be no easy, no matter where you played them at. Because at that time, like I said, it was him and Turner, and they had some good guards, and it was like we had to go to Braddock. I mean, that's the first thing we go eat our pizza. He's like, we're gonna play Braddock. Yeah, coach, what's up? Coach Henson. He's like, yeah, what's up? All right, let's just get ready. We already know we're gonna be in for a war. So once it came to that, man, it was that 84 era, man, it was something else, man. I mean, it didn't turn out the way it should have. I know that in my heart. But,
I agree with you too. I'm 100% agreeing with that.
I mean, Frank and them came that day, man. I mean, I knew what they was bringing to the table, but I just knew we had the secret weapon in Big E. I was like, all we got to do is just give the ball to him. Everybody else play their roles. We good.
Yeah, it was crazy because Tyrone went from playing JV. I think he was player of the year in the region. Either him or Amaker. He was player of the year in the region. Went from JV to player of the year his junior year, and I think he scored like 23 a game.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a player develop that much. I mean, he probably always had it in him. He just needed an opportunity, some graduation.
He did. That's what Henson and them gave him an opportunity. And I rode his coattail. I rode
right.
man, he was Batman, I was Robin.
That's right.
My whole everywhere we went. He was Batman, he was Robin. So by the time we came to my senior year, and we talk about this all the time when I see him. All my opportunities college-wise, he gave me everything because everybody was coming to look at him, and I just happened to shine. So coaches would know about me. They'd be like, "Oh, who's that kid right there?" Yeah. So I thank E from the bottom of my heart, man, from this day, because all his shine got me some too.
Yeah,
and it worked out, Yeah.
Where'd you play in college?
I played in Hampton. I graduated from Hampton.
Yep.
I transferred from junior college in Texas. Funny thing, me and E he ended up going to San Jacinto. I ended up going to Laredo. At that point in time in 84, San Jacinto was the number one.
Yep.
Laredo was the number 2 junior college in the nation. And me and him met up twice a year. And it was funny because I'm sitting there, I've been playing with this man all my life. Now all of a sudden I'm playing against him. So I got to tell this big man, look, don't go for the fake.
Don't go for the fake.
The fake. Choke him the whole game.
Yeah. How about you, Frank? You want to go next, Frank? Set the table for
Yeah, I'll correct you on one thing you said earlier. We didn't struggle with Lee.
You didn't?
No, I didn't think you would have struggled against Lee, actually.
No, well, we didn't struggle with Lee. We didn't struggle at all, except for one little game that we lost at Edison my senior year. So, like I was talking about earlier, I remember all the losses that we had over my high school career. It's the other games I don't really quite remember a whole lot about them, but you remember the losses.
Yeah.
And we had one loss in the conference in the district rather to Edison that year, which was they just caught us on a bad night.
Paul Wilder and Kelly Catron.
And of course Kelly grew up with us, so
right.
they thought they won the state championship that night.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but we got it on the second game. But anyway, just going back, like I said, we grew up in the rec center, which was great for me, football and basketball wise, because we had so much talent in the city, and we were coming from different areas of the city. So you were competing against Charles Houston or this rec center or that rec center. And it was just so much talent. And then the talent was kind of moved into the 2 junior high schools with GW and Hammond. So, and those became the 2 big rivals, or it was always a rivalry. But the thing was the school system kept changing. So one year it might be 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then one year it was 10th, 11th, and 12th at TC, so it kept changing. But when we came through, you were able to play as an 8th grader, play on the freshman team, which I did. And I remember playing as an 8th grader against GW, and they blew us out by like 25 at our place. And again, they had Daryl Bell, Carlos, and I think Chucky Martin and those guys. I mean, and we had, Bobby Boy, Brian Vaughn, we were loaded. We were obviously the two best teams, we thought, but they beat the crap out of us. So I stayed there. The natural progression was for me to play as a 9th grader at TC. Well, of course I did, and I wanted to stay with my friends and my class, and so I stayed there at TC as a freshman, and I stayed at Hammond as a freshman. And then something happened at TC that year with the team, where they had some suspensions over the holidays at some tournament, and a bunch of players got suspended. And so I think the initial thing was to move up 2 players from Hammond and 2 from GW up to the TC JV, because those JV players were moved up to varsity. And you mentioned being undefeated, Calvin. I know we didn't lose when I was on the JV team. Now, it wasn't a whole season, so I don't know before I got there.
Not your fault.
We didn't lose, and we won the district or whatever it was at that particular time. And so as a freshman, I'm playing on the JV, and then I get moved up to the varsity for the district tournament.
Oh, cool.
Which was either at Lake Braddock or Robson, I don't remember. And I'm not expecting to play. I'm on the end of the bench for warm-up gear. I think it's me, Daryl Belk, and somebody, Carlos, Chucky Martin, or whoever. I'm not expecting to play. And he puts me in. And I'm in for like 5 seconds. And I don't even think time went off the clock. I think it might have been an illegal substitution, actually. Because when I went in, someone was shooting a free throw, and then it buzzed, and I was out. So I don't know what that was all about, but I was in and whatever. But, I just remember growing up and going to Robinson and seeing the crowd. And that was like, man, this is, I got to get back here and be playing instead of being a spectator. And, and then of course to be able to play there in '84 after a couple of, 2 years before we didn't get to play for whatever reason, but just to be able to play. And then I go back from '84, I hadn't been back to Robinson until about 2000, maybe 16 or 17, when my brother's team, he's the head coach at Hilton, they're playing in the state tournament, and with this expanded tournament now, they're playing at Robinson. And I walk in expecting to see thinking I'm gonna see the same atmosphere. And I walk in, I'm going like, this is not the same place we play. The crowd wasn't there. It didn't look as humongous as it did as I was growing up. So I think that excitement had kind of left with the state tournament being expanded so much, but it was a great experience playing there. Like I said, those first round games in a regional, you kind of knew what was going to happen pretty much. But the real games were when you got to Robinson.
Yeah.
And we knew we had 2 opponents that we had to play against that were going to be pretty good. And, we know we didn't have an answer for E. We knew we just let him get his. And normally we could compensate for that with myself, Brian Miller, Tracy Scruggs. We can get enough scoring out of the 3 of us where we could overcome, any one person scoring on the other team. And that's kind of what happened in that game. And I do remember we were down 10 late in that game, came back, made a run, and obviously won the game. But it was a great experience for me, and obviously coming off of a, football state championship as well that year. And then, having to go down and play in state and play at Charlottesville, which was the other goal, because I had been down there to see TC play. I grew up on the undefeated TC Williams team and those other teams that went down to state and play. So I had seen them play and think, got to get down here, got to get down. Of course, we ran into Mike Porter and an old friend, and his game had improved tremendously. And
hey Frank, why did you decide to go to Mount Vernon instead of TC?
My parents were not letting me go to TC. They just weren't. It wasn't going to happen. It was their belief at that time that the educational components of Alexander City Schools was not what I needed. I always argue with them this day that I would have been okay academically, but they had it in their mind that I was not going to TC. And I think because the reputation sometimes can be painted in a way that there were a lot of players that were talented enough in Alexandria that just did not get a chance to play at TC because it was just one team.
Yeah.
I felt that would have been okay, obviously, from an athletic standpoint as well. But, they were set on not having me go to TC Williams. So,
Yeah.
And they felt like even the move to the JV team was, they're manipulating you. And I was like, Mom, I was the best player on the team, but she wasn't having it. So,
Yeah.
it was one of those situations where that particular time, my parents, they were co-parenting, they were divorced.
Okay. Yeah.
And my father's wife, actually, who became his wife, which people don't realize because I learned this not too long ago and through Facebook. My father's wife lived in the Mount Vernon district.
Oh.
So she already had a house there. So they ended up eventually getting married. And so, it was crazy because of the past transfers that had happened. They actually sent someone to my house to make sure I was living there from the county. Guy walks in.
That's because you were good. If you sucked, you would have done it.
Hey, look, and at that time, that's what it was about, Frank. You had to, if you had to be in the district you live in. That's the only way you could play at the school at that time back then.
Yeah.
You had to, if you wanted to go to Mount Vernon, you had to live in that area.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people were assuming all kinds of drama, and it was actually legitimate.
It was legit. And like I said, I heard something on Facebook. Someone had posted something about, it was actually your 84 team, Calvin, and someone had made a comment that at first it was funny. And I was like, people must be thinking this, that they bought me a house and
dog. Yeah, that was the
rumor. That was the rumor.
Yeah, that was the only way, because no way we're gonna let somebody in this town that get out of Alexandria. It had to be something controversial for him to go all the way to Mount Vernon. And that stuck with everybody in Alexandria from this day forward. It has, from that day, the minute he showed up in a Mount Vernon uniform, they were like, hold on, don't Frank live in Alexandria? Live in Delray. Why is he going?
So I had to, and I don't usually respond a lot on Facebook, but I had to respond to it. I said, listen, guy, I said, you disrespecting my father, but you're also disrespecting my father's wife, who lived in that house long before it was even thought about me going to Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
And he apologized, I'm sorry, this is what I heard. So I'm thinking, okay, this must be what a lot of people think. So let's squash that right now. I said, no problem, just letting you know this is what happened. I've told my brother about it, obviously, who played at Mount Vernon as well. And he was like, bought us a house. He said, we needed a car.
Exactly.
Money buys a car.
A car for Barry and a house for Frank, right?
Yeah. Anyway, ended up there, had a great time. Coach McCool was great. Like I said, we didn't lose often. I think maybe 10 games in 3 years we lost. Actually, two district games we lost in 3 years.
Yeah.
And one was to a very good Hayfield team my sophomore year, which was in the district tournament final.
Yeah.
So we had to play them again the next night.
Yeah, the playback.
And then we beat them. Then of course we get upset by TC Williams. So it was great competing against my friends, but you weren't friends on the court, because I had competed against them in basketball, I think 3 times. That one my sophomore year, and then of course in '84. But then also I competed against them in football for 2 years, which in regional playoff games.
Yeah.
So
TC was really good football back then too.
Right.
Look, that's even more reason why they created so much controversy for Frank, because it's like, look, this joker, we got to play him in football, basketball, and he was excelling. Yeah. And it's like, he's supposed to be doing this here.
Yeah. Right. He's still in that house right now. That's the house they bought him.
Yeah, bought me a house. But anyway, the great high school career. Learned a lot from Coach McCool. Just talked with him the other day, and he's doing great. Keep in touch with my teammates. They all seem to be doing well. Also, I obviously got to give shout out to Brian Miller, who I thought was always underrated as a player.
Yeah.
You bring out those all Met teams, and he's honorable mention all Met. The guy averaged 30 a game.
Yeah.
And he's honorable mention. So it is what it is. But
hey, look, with all due respect, he was Larry Bird before I knew who the hell Larry Bird was.
Exactly.
He could score.
Well, Derrick and I were we were county teammates. They called Travel County back then. So we played against. It's funny. We played against all the players around except for Alexandria and Arlington. You guys had your own leagues. So we didn't know you guys, but we knew Brian. We played against Brian since we were kids. And we knew Tracy. We knew some of the other kids from the Mount Vernon team. But so Derrick and I were county teammates. Derrick was always the best player on our team. He was just an amazing scorer. He would just find a way to score inside. He was a great guy to play with because he never complained. He didn't have, he was a superstar, but he never had that kind of ego. He would just score 20 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. He wouldn't say a word, just get it done. So, so Derrick ended up going to Lake Braddock. I never beat Derrick. So I beat Calvin one game. I didn't get on the court, but we upset TC in the Garden year. They got second in the state. Frankie, I never beat in football. I'm not even talking about football. But Derrick, I was 0 for 6, 0 for 7 against Derrick too. So It was painful. Yeah. So anyway, Derrick, why don't you go next?
All right. Like you said, Julie and I started out, 7th grade year, I guess it was, at Braddock Road, played 7th and 8th grade year. Then I went to Lake Braddock. You went to Robinson. Frank, you're talking about being at TC and Mount Vernon. I remember now, and it kind of still pisses me off. We lost you in the finals my freshman year on the JV, and in the finals my senior year on the varsity. So you're on my shit list.
Glad to be on for that reason.
Hope people are okay with the foul language, but
glad to be there for that reason.
Still not my best friend. Sorry.
So
and Julian mentioned that Lake Braddock really had never been any kind of a powerhouse basketball wise, and coming up, I played JV my freshman year. We got to the finals, lost to TC, then played varsity my sophomore year, more a role player then, and then kind of progressed as time went along. And then our senior year, we did have a lot of good players. We thought we had a pretty good team, but we didn't really know what it was like to have a good team, right? We never, maybe once in Lake Braddock's history, they went to the finals of the district, and that team kind of lucked into it. So we didn't know what to expect. We got in there and got lucky, I guess, against TC. TC, you guys beat us, Calvin, twice during the regular season. Yeah. 2 close games, and then we beat you guys in 2 close games in the district. And Frank, you mentioned that the atmosphere back then, and I think it is a total difference of atmosphere back then versus now. I think there's so many things kids can do these days. They don't really want to go to basketball games. It's not what they do. I mean, my daughters go to Fairfax County Public Schools, and they played one played basketball and they both played volleyball. But the crowds, even for the boys' games, are not like they used to be. I mean, they used to be packed, people yelling, screaming, and just going nuts. Now it just seems like a total different atmosphere to me.
Yeah,
which is no good.
Have you been to a game at TC Williams?
No. Is that good crowds?
No.
Oh, no.
You know how that place used to be.
Oh yes,
in the old gym.
Hey, let me just chime in. Excuse me for a minute, Derrick.
Yeah.
I have not been Robinson, Lake Braddock since the 80s.
Yeah.
The tournament was there back in the day, and I went to one, but I played at a alumni game at TC, and when I walked in there, I was like, man, I want to go back to high school because it's not like the gym we grew up in.
Yeah.
So
I think the time period has changed.
Different atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, like when we played basketball, to be on the basketball team was an honor. To coach, like Derrick's father was an icon in the area. I mean, Edison, wherever you coach, all those guys like Red Jenkins, Heinz, they were big guys. They walked around. People said, that's Coach Heinzen or that's Coach McCool. I mean, these guys were icons, and it meant so much. We used to, the year of the Final Four that we're talking about, the '84 year, Lake Braddock had a massive crowd because the school was enormous. TC had those amazing cheerleaders. I mean, they had such a experience with tournaments that the crowd came in. I mean, TC brought a huge crowd, and then Mount Vernon has such a rich sports tradition from football that, I mean, the school wasn't as big as Lake Braddock or TC, but the crowd was very loyal. So it was just an amazing environment. So you guys were in there playing, and it's 6,000 people, and I mean, it's loud and it's an environment. I mean, I guess ODU is a great place to play, and I'm sure Hampton was, and I'm not sure about Campbell, but it's really hard to duplicate the environment. And I knew what you guys had because my sister played there, and to me, that was a dream come true. When you guys walked out on the floor for pregame warmups, that's something I had dreamed about my whole, in high school, and you guys were actually doing it,
I think a lot of it too is that they got all these clubs now, in AAU and clubs, and most of the kids want to do that because that's where they get recruited. So the high school is just not what it used to be as far as, excitement, crowds. It's not as big a deal to be on the high school team anymore. I don't think it's more about what club you play for, what AAU team do you play for, because that's where you get your scholarship offers. So I think that's a huge difference, as well as there's everything in the world you can do now with Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all that kind of crap my kids do. It's a totally different environment. I think it's unfortunate. Because like you say, Julian, it's just the crowds were great.
Oh,
And
it's unreal.
You'd go into like a Pizza Hut after a game and you get a standing ovation after, because they saw you at the game, and it was a cool thing to have. And I doubt that happens now.
Yeah, and Calvin and Frank, you guys remember this when TC went to state the Arnie Russell year. I listened to the whole game on the radio. When they went to state, they lost to Booker T. Washington in overtime. The game was on the radio. I listened to every play of the game. That's how important the Final Four was and the state tournament was back then.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, just like you say, crowds. I mean, I grew up going to TC Williams games, and the atmosphere at every game at TC was like ridiculous. I mean, you didn't get there early, you didn't get in.
Yeah.
You didn't get in. So
yeah.
And watching Arnie Russell and those guys, we watched those guys growing up. So it's definitely a different atmosphere, a different thought process. I was one of the few guys when AAU ball was just starting for Alexandria, because we didn't have teams in Alexandria at first. So I ended up going over to DC and play.
Mm-hmm.
So I played with a lot of players from the DC, Maryland area. Darryl Pruse at TC, obviously the head coach. I played with Pruse for a year. I played with Sherman Douglas. A lot of good players over the years and then we finally got a team in Alexandria. I heard your interview with Kendall Hayes the other day. He was talking about our man, Embraceable Band, one of the teams that he played. Well, that was one of our AAU team.
Oh, cool.
Chuck,
yeah.
That's Chuck and Carlos Martin's father.
Okay.
He's the band. He's the leader of that band.
Mm.
So he would always sponsor us. So, and we also had the GW Summer League, which was crazy. You talk about fans. It was crazy every night. Because those older guys would come back and you see them and you'd be like, that's where I want to be. It was kind of like that thing, but this was all the talent in Alexandria. And then other people started coming and getting involved. So the games were great. On a summer night, people would be at the GW gym to see the summer league. And then I think by the time I got able to play in college or whatever, they moved it outdoors to another location. It wasn't the same.
Mm. So Calvin and Frankie, going into the semifinals, I was trying to remember who I thought was the favorite, because we had played both of you. We played all three of you guys, and also played Jefferson. We beat Jefferson in a 1-point game over there, and they were not as good as definitely on you guys' level, but they had Curvin, and they had Coach Wickline's does a great job. But we obviously it was going to be one of you three teams most likely to go to state. But going into that game, Calvin or Frankie, whoever wants to go first, who do you guys think was the favorite? I mean, who had the mental edge going into that game?
We were favored because we were returning a lot of people. Like I said, we had just lost state that year. So in the area, it was like, okay, TC's they're the favorite. It's just a matter if they're going to be there. We just had to put ourselves there because like I said, he was like the number one player in the area. And we were like, he was like the Temptations, and we was the pimps. So once he did his thing, we just had to be in that position.
Yeah.
And he led us. So we, like you said, from that junior year. Oh, when he came back, all the accolades he had, it was just a matter of us, the role players playing their role. And I know Frank and them had a stacked team, but I mean, everybody they had their stacked team for their district, but overall in the whole area, I mean, I would say we were favored. It might fare different, but I would never think that we wasn't favored.
I bet you Frank disagrees with you.
Of course.
Well, I'll say this. And it might have been a product of you two guys beating up on each other, but we were the number one seed.
Once it all came down, I remember that.
We were the number one seed.
I remember that because we had lost a couple of district games that year.
Well, you lost to Lake Braddock.
They lost the playback. They lost the playback game.
Right.
Yeah,
We
Just
lost
put
to
you
them
out,
twice
right?
and they lost us
that's
twice.
what hurt
So.
us.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
hurt us.
But
Exactly.
Frank,
we were
what
the
was
number
y'all's
one seed.
record going in to the region?
What was our record?
Yeah, do you even know?
We had lost 4 games up
4
to that
games.
point. And like I said, I remember Anacostia, we lost Edison, Woodson, Oakton during that time. You know,
Because
so
we had just lost to each other. I think we're both, what, 2 losses, Calvin, probably?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
So we were number 1 seed. You know, we weren't a very deep team. We played 5, maybe 6 guys, you know, maybe 7 on a good night. But people knew their role. We knew Mill had to score for us a lot. You know, we knew our defense had to create easy buckets for us. So, you know, we pressed all the time, and you know, that was Coach McCool's style. And we had to figure out a way to, like I said, if we just could somehow contain E. We only gave him 39.
Yeah.
But like I said, we were able to overcome that with the 3 of us, our 3 scores. And,
Yeah.
you know, but we knew we couldn't stop it. I mean, it was,
Right.
and you know, he was obviously one of the better players in the area. So, and he did his thing. Like I said, fortunately, we were able to get some buckets late and get out. I know it was a close game. I can't remember what the score was, but I know it was like a 3 or 4 point game.
Hey, did you and Glenn have a good relationship? Did you guys have a big rivalry? Both quarterbacks, both excellent point guards. Did you guys?
I mean, you know, last time I saw Glenn, I just got married in 2017, so he was at my wedding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but you know, we go way back to. It's interesting, like again, because of the way things were set up. As an 8th grader playing football at Hammond, I was a quarterback. His brother Derrick, who was a year older than me, was my backup. And then Derrick ended up going to Bishop Ironton. The following year, Glenn was my backup as my quarterback.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've always, you know, we played football together. Then, of course, on the basketball team, we were in the backcourt together at Hammond as the 9th graders. His brother Derrick was on the team the year before. So yeah, we've always had a pretty good relationship. Obviously, unless when you stepped in between those lines, but you know, obviously very talented. I'm trying to remember. I think I gave him his nickname.
What's that?
You remember his nickname, Calvin?
No,
I gave him the nickname.
that's my man. Hey, look, every bucket I scored in high school, that was my man. He assisted somewhere in the. All the points in high school, I'm telling you, he probably got 99.9% of them assists.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I think I gave him that nickname. I think I remember. Crazy, but so that's that.
Nickname, I missed that.
Yeah.
Silk.
So, oh yeah. I remember that. So Derrick, go. You know, you beat Jefferson pretty easy, and then did you have a preference between? I mean, you guys knew TC really well, and you know, you just beat them twice. Sometimes that's too familiar. You know, Mount Vernon is a very tough team to play because they're very unique. You know, you play them, they do things that are different. Did you guys have a preference going in, or you were just happy to be there?
I was happy to be there, but I didn't want to play TC. We already had to battle them 4 times, and it was not easy. And I didn't really know much about Mount Vernon. I knew Frank, I knew Brian, Scruggs, but we never played them. So, and I don't know how many common opponents we had, maybe a few, but I don't think I ever saw them play, so I didn't know much about them. So when they beat TC, I was like, remember being happy about it. And looking back on it, I don't know if I should have been, but but I mean, I knew like TC was a known commodity. They were a known factor. They were going to be tough, and they beat us twice. We beat them twice. It was going to be crazy if we had to play them again. So I was glad to try to play against someone else until we got on the court.
Exactly. So I talked to Derrick Turner briefly. I invited him on the call as well. He's unfortunately he's battling some things now. But one thing Derrick said that he wanted you guys to know is he missed the foul shots that could have put you guys to the state tournament, Derrick. So
I don't remember that, but
yeah, he blamed himself. He said, "Look, if I made some foul shots, we would have beaten Mount Vernon that day." So
we all have things we could have done where we said we could have won if, right? The biggest word in the English language is if. Right? If I would have played better, if I wouldn't have missed this shot. I mean, it was a close game. It was it's a tough game, but everyone could point out things they didn't do. That even on Mount Vernon, we could have won by a lot more if we would have done this. So I don't think.
Frank, do you remember that game at all? The Lake Braddock game? I mean, you didn't know.
I don't remember anything about it. No, like I said, the only thing I remember is the last possession. we were up 1, and I got a steal and got fouled, and I hit 2 free throws, and it was a 3-point game.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's what we got winning.
the steal you got, I believe, Derrick, is our buddy Vince Sanavica played point guard for Lake
Yep.
Braddock. He might have gone up, and he may have tried to pass the ball and said shoot it or something. It was one of those. See, Vince blames himself, Derrick blames himself, and Derrick Hensley blames himself. But Vince takes the full blame. He says, I threw the ball away in the last 10 seconds. So I always said, well, Vince, you were there, and I was up there watching you. So I mean.
But I'd also say when you think about what happened to Vince, he picked his dribble up. I think it was Priest got on him, but I hadn't had a good game. I didn't come after the ball aggressively. I knew he was in trouble. I should have gone behind him and gotten him an easy pass, and I was kind of like, I played like crap. So it's not Vince's fault. And we wouldn't have been close if not for Vince. I mean, if you remember, Vince was hitting our only outside shots.
Oh yeah.
So it's easy to point fingers, but it's I didn't cut aggressively for the ball when he picked his dribble up, and I don't think anybody else did. I think everyone was kind of a little bit nervous about it, which because we've never been in those big games before.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to prepare for a game like quite that big.
Yeah.
And so I mean, TC had been there, but
that was the beauty of it. That was the beauty of playing at Robinson. You had those back-to-back games.
Yeah.
And I remember us having practice that morning to go over the scouting report for Lake Braddock.
Yeah.
After beating TC late the night before, we had a scouting report practice. It was a walkthrough, but you had to be ready to play that second night.
Yeah. And they had a tremendous height advantage over you guys. But again, you guys, your perimeter game, Lake Braddock, they also had big defenders, so they weren't necessarily perimeter defenders. Because you had not only you and Brian, but you had Scruggs. Scruggs could get 25 easy. So you guys are a very tough team to mark.
Well, most teams were bigger than us. We didn't have any size, but we had 2 guys that started that knew what their roles were. Sean Andrews was a sophomore at that particular time. Far from the player that he would turn out to be from Mount Vernon, but he knew what his role was. His role was to get Mill open. And our other starter, Lonnie Johnson, his role was to get Mill open, get those guys shots, and they did that very well. So, like I said, between the 3 of us, we could normally compensate for other people's, 1, maybe 2 scores. We could get enough points, especially when we got shots from Mill. He was going to make the majority of his shots. So.
So Frankie, you guys win the region. You cut the nets down, and then you're going to go up there and you're going to play Pulaski again. And Pulaski is a team I believe you played in football that fall, previous fall. So I didn't even know this, but Frank told me on Facebook that Mike Porter was from Alexandria. So not only are you losing kids to Mount Vernon with houses. They're building houses in Pulaski County for TCC players. So anyway, what did you guys think going in about Pulaski? Pulaski's a team that on paper you matched up pretty well with. They're really quick, but they weren't very big, and so you probably thought pretty good about that matchup going in, right?
Felt pretty good about the matchup. I will say this about Mike being in Alexandria. Brian Miller grew up in Alexandria. How about that?
So that's a house.
Brian, Hey, Calvin, Brian went to Maury Elementary.
I know. I remember that. He was back there. He came. I went to Maury. I remember him back then. Yeah. And then I didn't see him for a while after we left Maury. So I didn't know. But once I thought it dawned on me, I was like, yeah, because you couldn't forget a curly haired kid like that, man. He stood out.
Yeah. But Pulaski, I think it would have been a little bit easier if we had seen them play, which we had no clue how good they were. I mean, I knew Mike. Again, we talk about that rec center in Alexandria. Mike played with Glenn Williams and that crew on that side of town. And then Mike, like I said, was on the team at Hammond as an 8th grader. And then just one day he was gone. No one knew what happened. And I ran into him in Pulaski right after our football game. Went into the locker room after we'd won. I hear someone calling my name, and it's Mike. And so I got a chance to talk with him, and which was great. But we felt pretty good about the matchup, but we just didn't know enough about him. We didn't have the tape to watch or game tape, film to watch and see how they played really. So you're kind of going off what's your last recollection of Mike, which was in the 8th grade as an 8th grader. Now he's much better, improved his game obviously, and their big guy hurt us. He was the one that hurt us. The big
Who
guy.
Who was the big guy? I don't remember the big guy.
Don't remember the name. It's probably in the box score.
Yeah.
Was it Pete Wolfolk or something like that?
No, that was the guy.
No.
That was the guy at Jefferson Huguenot with. Frankie thinks they would have beaten those. They could have beaten those guys.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
well, I think we would have. We would not have laid down. We would have played them.
Oh yeah.
But their big guy hurt us at Pulaski, and then of course Mike got his, and then actually Mike was in foul trouble late in that game. I think he had 4 fouls, and we were always playing uphill, and again, talking about this game with Mill, we were on a Zoom call with the former teammates, and he struggled. He missed like his first 5-6 shots that game. We got behind. There were shots that he normally makes. He said the problem was he had never shot on a basket with that kind of backdrop.
Yeah.
He had to get used to it. And
U-Haul was the worst. U-Haul was the worst. It was
you don't get the practice.
Yeah.
You don't get the practice. Just a bunch of games back to back. And so he said, he had to get used to the backdrop. Now he ended up with I think 32 or whatever it was eventually. Yeah. But we got down early and was clawing our way back the whole game and just couldn't get over the hump and couldn't catch up. So good experience, but I think if we hit some shots early, and not only him, I think we all missed shots early, it could have been a different result. But they were a good team, but JSW was pretty good too. But I think we would have, I don't think we would have held the ball like you mentioned that we would have done that.
But Derrick and I watched the tournament together. I went down there with Derrick and Vince Sanavica. And every year Derrick was there because his dad was a coach. And my sister had played there, so I was there watching. So we always watched the tournament together. My recollection of the Pulaski game was there was never any momentum. You could never get back into. I kept waiting for you guys to get back into the game, and the game was grueling. I mean, you guys went back and forth, but there was never any momentum. I mean, you could never get over that hump. Like you never get the score down to like 4 or 6. It never got there, and they never slowed up. They kept the tempo going. I mean, they kept going at you guys. It was a great. And then the next night they played Jefferson Huguenot with, and I was telling Frankie that might be the best high school team I've ever seen. Richmond at that time they had put their high schools. They had made complexes, so there was 3 high schools in one. There was TJ, there was Huguenot, and there was George Wythe. All of them would have had great teams on their own. They became one high school. And Peter Wolfick was he was player of the year in the Colonial. They beat Auburn and Charles Barkley in the tournament a few years later. And he had this guy Alvin Lee, who was the leading scorer for Alabama. He averaged, I think he was the leading scorer in the country at junior college. And then he averaged 19 at and they had a guy named William Booker. They were tough. But I tell you, Pulaski did not come to play the next night. So if Pulaski, I actually think Mount Vernon would have played better. McCool is known, Frank, to slow the tempo down in these big games. So even though it didn't really fit what you guys have done, he did it against Moses Malone. He did it against Mark West. He did it later on. He did it against Hubert Davis. And they beat Lake Braddock. I mean, he's known for that. So I don't know. I think he may have tried. Who knows?
I think he's known for. You're right. But he didn't do it against Alonzo Mourning.
That's true.
They played them.
I'd say he's going to do what he thinks he has to do to win, right? And if it's to slow it down, he's going to do that. But Frank, I think you mentioned in one of the DMs back and forth that's not what you guys were good at. But if you thought you could win more like you'd win that way, I think you would definitely have done it.
Yeah,
it's all about winning.
Yeah,
I think it's great, really.
And you think about the '79 team that won the state championship for Mount Vernon. They were smaller than we were.
Yeah,
it was a really small team.
Yeah.
And when we joke about this, the players used to come back and play, after their high school careers, they used to come back into the gym and play, during the season, during the break. And that team came back, most of them came back and played us. And we beat the crap out of them. I mean,
who's
we beat
on
them
that team?
Junior Brown,
Derek Steele,
yep.
Eric Sellers,
Jay Majors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but they were very small. I mean, they were.
Yeah.
That's a good team, though.
Yeah, very good team, but they pressed and they did. But 6'3" might have been the tallest guy.
Yeah.
So,
Lost to Groveton 3 times.
Lost to Groveton 3 times with
Yeah.
Gary Ford, that group. So
Yeah. Keith Wilder.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they would. I don't know if we would have slowed it down. What, who knows? But
Who knows?
I just
Yeah.
don't see us playing that way, especially when you don't have much time to prepare. He was a great X and O's guy. And even in my coaching days, I've used a lot of stuff that I learned from him.
Oh yeah.
He was just, from a coaching standpoint, he was really, really good. And I played for a lot of coaches, but he was one of the best at the X and O part of it.
Yeah. So let's quickly just talk about what happened after high school, because you guys all had college careers. Calvin, you said you went to Laredo, and then how'd that go, and how did you end up at Hampton?
I went to Laredo for like a year. Transferred from them to another junior college in Nebraska. At that time, I came home to take some summer courses at Nova, and things wasn't working out for me I was actually supposed to go to Eastern Washington University, but at the time they didn't turn in my grades in time enough for the semester coming up. Had no choice. At the time, Hampton was Division II, and you could basically go to Division II with limited, education, so to speak. Mark Moore, one of my best friends, went there at the time. He was like, man, why don't you come to Hampton? And this goes back to what I told y'all earlier. We were at a Christmas tournament in Norfolk our senior year. Coach had seen E play. He shined, but I had a good tournament that same year. We were playing what's his name? Derrick Farrell in it. Yeah, we were in the tournament with
Dwayne
Farrell. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Dwayne Farrell.
Yeah.
We was in the tournament with him that year in Norfolk. So that was like two best players in the area at the time. And Eshine and I had a good game. Coach called me and said, hey, come down. I came down. They put me on a trial. I came down on a Greyhound bus. And I kid y'all not, got out the Greyhound bus, gave me some shorts and some shirts, went there and shot him out. He gave me a scholarship the same day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's all she wrote.
Did you play a lot?
I stayed at Hampton. And I was back there in the days when the Ralph Talley era.
Yeah.
The what's the cat that used to play at Virginia Union? Left Terry Davis era. That's when the CIAA was tough at that year. Y'all talk about crowds. We used to sell out the Scope. Norfolk State and Hampton played. That was like the Lakers and the Celtics playing. So it was like standing room only. And this was when Ralph Talley. Matter of fact, this is when the first year that they started showing HBCU schools on BET. Because our game when we played Union and Terry Davis to them in Richmond, it was on BET. And
that's
all she wrote. I stayed there and played for Hank Ford, who's now deceased, may rest in peace. He taught me a lot. He gave me an opportunity. He stayed bad at me because whenever he told me to shoot, he's like, shoot, stop hesitating. And I never forget we were playing Virginia State. And it was like, can we get out of here? So I missed the shot. Called a timeout. I had another chance. He said, yo, can you just get us out of here? Take the shot, miss it again. He said, all right. Called the senior Raymond. He hit the shot, get out of here. He said, do I not need to call you anymore? I'll never forget that day. I said, no, Coach, you can always call on me. But he never stopped calling on me. But those were my days. I was, like I said, I was in the midst of the CIAA at Hampton.
Yeah.
It was CIAA was like the best HBC tournament in America at that time.
Yeah.
And we stayed in Richmond or we stayed in the Scope in Norfolk. So, and then when Frank came down and he used to hang out at ODU and stuff, I would try and run into him every now and then. But in the 80s, in the Tidewater, basketball was off the chart then. It was off the chart.
How about you, Derrick? So Derrick, you ended up going to Campbell. did you sign early, or how'd that come about?
I was being recruited probably by like 8 or 10 lower level Division One, so I wasn't that highly recruited. But Press Maravich, so Pete Maravich's dad, came to see me play in a game, and the next day they said, "Hey, we want you to kind of orally commit to us." And I was like, "How many times can you play for a guy like Press?" So I did. I said, "Okay, let's do that. It's full ride. I'm going to play for Press Maravich." He was one of the greatest coaches at the time that had coached, and now that's obviously changed. But I thought it'd be cool to play for him, and it was. Unfortunately, he's down there for a year, and then they got rid of him and the head coach because he knew everybody. Right. So my freshman year was 84, 85, I think is what it was. So we played North Carolina State, we played Houston, we played Clemson, we played Wake Forest, and you can't beat that. At Campbell, you're not going to beat those teams, right? And we had a horrible record, and the school got rid of the coaches. So the reason why I went down there, he was there for a year. But I got some good stories about Pete, and Press was kind of he's a little crazy about his basketball, but it was an interesting experience to actually talk to him and listen to some of his theories and some of the things that Pete did. And it was pretty wild. So
Derek, did you play two guard? Did you play two guard at Campbell, or because you're more of a three?
I started at point guard, and then they got like a 5'9" point guard is better than me, so they moved me to like a 2 or 3 kind of. I was more utility after I played 2 years of point guard. I ended up having to guard. We had our big man foul out against UNC Wilmington. A guy named Brian Rowsome, I think his name was. He about 6'11". He actually played in the NBA for a little while, but I had to guard him for a while. So they just moved me wherever.
Yeah. Cool.
If you're not good at anything, you just put you wherever you have to, wherever they need somebody. So
they call them utility guys.
Yeah.
That's it, man. It's utility.
Well,
wherever you need me to go, I'll go. Just get on the court. That's all I want.
No, that's Derek. Well, before Frank tells us about his football versus basketball decision, I always love telling my Frankie Smith football story. Frank played for Hammond, and this Hammond, our freshman year, this Hammond team was one of the best football teams I'd ever seen. I mean, for the level they were at, they were unbelievable. You walk on, they were huge. I mean, there must have been like 5 Division I players on that team eventually. I don't even know, but they were amazing. So they hadn't been scored upon all year. So I mean, they were just blowing people out. So we ran this play called the waggle. We ran a wing tee. Every play looked the same. You fake a dive, you fake a sweep, and then you fake a reverse. And then the quarterback would fake a long pass. First play of the game, we get the ball. We're nervous. Hammond's going to kill us, right? We run the waggle first play. We fake the dive, fake the sweep, fake the reverse. We go long. Guy's wide open in the end zone by himself. Ball hits him in the helmet, falls down. And then Hammond rolls like 38 straight points. But we run that play in the fourth quarter, and we scored the same play, and we were the only team. I think Frank, right? We were the only team to score on you that year. So the guy's name was Tim Kazmarek. I hope he's listening. But anyway, Frank, I know that everybody was shocked when you decided to play basketball. You were a great basketball player, but football. I mean, Oklahoma, you had the top 10. All the option teams were looking at you, and you had some of the best teams in the country looking at you. So how did you decide you were going to play basketball, or you'd always wanted to play basketball? It wasn't even a decision to make.
Yeah, it was always basketball. But I think what it did, the way I approached it, obviously I was having a great year football wise. And till this day, I'm still a big college football fan. And so, I'm going to use this to my advantage. These teams are recruiting me, and, I've been a Notre Dame football fan forever. If you guys remember, they used to come on Sunday mornings.
Yeah. Lindsey Nielsen.
Yeah. It was the only thing on at that time of morning on Sundays. So I never missed a game that was, Notre Dame football. And I just became a fan. And so I always wanted to go to Notre Dame. I wanted to see it. So when it came time to take visits, let's go visit Notre Dame. Let's see what it's like. I've always wanted to go to the West Coast. Okay, let's go out to USC. Let's see what that's like. So Dave Wanstead's recruiting me at USC. John Robinson's a head coach. Jerry Faust is a coach at Notre Dame. He's trying to get it going there. And then my other visit was to Nebraska. I don't even know how I even picked Nebraska. I ended up taking a visit to Nebraska. That was a year Rozier, Turner Gill, Urban Fryer. Rozier won the Heisman. Crazy. 70,000 people in the stands that I went, because they were playing UCLA on national TV. And they get down early and they come back and just blow them out. I mean, they lose in the national championship game that year to Miami. But I think that's where all the speculation was about me playing football. So I think that scared off a lot of basketball recruiters, thinking I was going to play, rightfully so. And I wasn't thinking that way. I just wanted to see these places, free trip.
Yeah.
And
Did you get
so I went,
did you get like 3 or 5? Whatever, I can't remember what the number of visits were, but did you get that for football and basketball, or was it combined?
I think it was 5 total.
5 total, no matter what sport.
5 total, yeah.
Okay.
At that particular time, I think, because if not, I probably would have taken more. I think, or at least thought I was going to.
Yeah.
So I got to USC, and like I said, Juan says the coach, and I go to a Raiders playoff game. They're playing Seattle with Jim Zorn at the Coliseum. So they take me by the hotel the night before where the Raiders are staying. I meet Marcus Allen, I meet Ray Guy. The Raiders back in the day. I know Kyle was a big Raiders.
Still to this day.
I know he's a Raiders fan. So I do that. I go to Notre Dame and I see a basketball game. Actually, they play Maryland, Len Bias and those guys. And Notre Dame is pretty good with Digger Phelps and everything. So I think that but I was always going to play basketball. And so one day at school, there's coaches in the athletic director's office. Now, my football coach, Bruce Patrick, is also the AD at Mount Vernon at the time. So he comes and gets me out of class and he says, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Southern Cal are in my office. I'm like, Coach, I'm going to play basketball. And, of course, he stops. It's shocking to him. He says, well, you need to go in there and tell him. I'm like, oh, shit. So I've got Tom Osborne, Jerry Faust, and somebody from USC in his office. And I'm like, I'm going to play basketball. And so that kind of ended with my recruiting. It's funny because Jerry Faust is a alumnus of the University of Dayton where I was coaching. And he would come back and he remembered me. Out of all the people that he recruits, a number of people, but he remembered where I went to school. He said, yeah, I remember you. And he always said, you could have played on Sundays. People that heard that would echo that, they heard Jerry Faust say that to me, you could have played on Sundays. So of course, now I've only got 2 visits left. I'm going to Old Dominion, had a great time, situation was great. They had a senior point guard, which was great. And then my other visit was supposed to be to UVA after I got back from ODU. Well, by the time I get back from ODU, I'm tired. I'm tired of visiting. I'm done with it. I called Coach McCool and said, Coach, I'm going to ODU. I'm not even going to go to UVA. And he says, are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, it's UVA, it's ACC. I think about it later, but I'm set. I'm not taking any more visits. I'm going to ODU. It's a great situation. UVA had already signed John Johnson at the point guard, who I'd played against AAU ball over the years. But like I said, the situation at ODU was tailor-made for me from a playing standpoint. And so that's how I ended up going to ODU. But I think, the football recruitment early on scared a lot of basketball recruiters off. So I go to ODU, play for Paul Webb for a year, and we're a pretty good team, go to Ncaa Tournament. I end up starting about halfway through the season. And, we run into a very good VCU team that year who beat us like 3 times, beat us in the tournament final that year. We get to the Ncaa Tournament. This is in the Sun Belt Tournament, Sun Belt Conference, when we had all those good teams, and you'd get like four teams in the tournament. And, Terry Catledge was at South Alabama, was a first-round draft pick. And so we go to the Ncaa Tournament. We lose in the first round to SMU with John Concack and that crew. The next year, we got most of our guys back, losing the second round to Duke, the team that with Tommy and the team that lost to Louisville, and had one of my worst games ever against on national TV. So, I got guys saying, yeah, man, I was pumping you up and you go out there and you play like crap. And I did. I played like crap. And so we lose. Duke's really good. And we lose by like 20 on national TV. It's one of those games where they switched to a more competitive game. That was us. And, of course, they lose it to Louisville in the final. But then, we lost the majority of our starters after that season. So I was the only returning starter or only out of our top 8 or so players that was coming back. And back up after my first year as a freshman, Paul Webb decides to retire. So now in comes Tom Young from Rutgers as our coach, and a little adjustment period, but we get it going. I think we were like 23-8, something like that, and win the regular season title. And then again, like I said, we beat West Virginia Darrell Prue it was a freshman on that team in West Virginia. And then we lose to Duke in the second round. And then the next year, we're just terrible. I mean, we win 6 games because I've lost Kenny Gasson, who's in the NBA, and some other really good players and experienced players. And we're just at the bottom of the barrel and trying to fight our way back. So we win 6 games that year as a junior. And it was a long season, I'm telling you. We get better my senior year with a couple new guys, and we end up going to the NIT. And we lost to Ohio State at their place with Jay Burson and Perry Clark. What's Perry's name? Can't remember his last name.
Oh, you're talking about left-hand cat.
Yeah.
I know you're talking about, yeah.
So we lose to them at Ohio State and NIT. So that was my career. And then, that was my 4 years. It was a good 4 years, ups and, 2 good years with the NCAA tournament. And then, a bad year. And actually the year we won 6 games, we actually beat Richmond that year, which they were very good. I mean, we won some games, and we even beat Maryland that year, and we were terrible. And we were terrible. But that was my college career, and so it was good. It was good. It was good to be down at ODU. It was funny because, we had played the state football championship at ODU, at Foreman Field, and so I was a little bit familiar with the campus a little bit, and we didn't have football at the time. So our football was Norfolk State because Norfolk State played their home games at ODU. And I remember Ralph Talley and those guys, when Union came to town, or Hampton and Norfolk State with Ralph Talley and those guys, it was a huge deal. So, but it was a good career. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Well, guys, this has been great. We've gone more than an hour. You guys gave me a lot of your time, but why don't we end by, do you guys have any predictions for the NCAA tournament getting ready to come up? Anyone want to go on record here?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's unpredictable, man, because you don't know with this pandemic if somebody don't test 7 days straight and they have to drop out. I mean, you might get caught up in. I just hope everything goes through. If I had to pick an odds-on favorite or who I'd like to see, I'd go with Michigan.
Jawan?
I like what Jawan's done with those guys. They've been consistent. If they didn't have that COVID break, oh my goodness, they was rolling at the time they had that COVID break. But I had to go with Michigan. I had to pick Michigan.
Yeah. How about you, Derrick? You got any picks for us?
I've not seen a single game, so I have no predictions. It's kind of embarrassed to say it, but I've not watched a single game.
Well, it's not going to be Campbell anyway, right?
Yeah, we know that. They lost to Winthrop.
How about you, Frank?
Exactly.
Hey,
look, we're in the same conference now, Derrick, in the Big South.
Oh, yeah.
In the
I
Big
think I
South
do
now,
remember
too.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
Because my daughters play volleyball, and they had a tournament down there near Hampton. I was going to watch Campbell and Hampton play, but it didn't happen. I was hoping to.
Yeah, cool. How about you, Frank? Anything?
When you work for the NCAA, you learn to be.
Oh, that's right.
Whatever your thoughts may be, you learn to stay neutral.
Frank, what do you do for the NCAA? That's interesting, John.
I work in enforcement, associate director of enforcement.
So make sure people don't break the rules.
Yeah.
Compliance.
Like get free houses, right? Like get free houses, Frank.
Exactly.
Hey, look, he's the enforcer without being the enforcer.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of a misleading title.
Yeah, it is.
Because of our enforcement department, but we try and be the governing body for sports, NCAA sports.
Gotcha.
So,
the office is based there in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, we're in Indianapolis here. So we take a lot of arrows for stuff that don't belong in our direction. But
I can imagine.
You gotta have thick skin, and just shake your head.
I hope and pray y'all guys pull it off, man, because it's definitely much needed. I'm telling you, last year was such a shock, man. It was like no March Madness. It's like, whoa, hold up. Now to be able to just get to this point and kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm praying that it go through, man, because there's some good teams out there. It's gonna be some good games.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward, because I think in the past there's been talk of, having it at one central place every year.
That bubble, man. You need that. You need that.
Kind of like the College World Series is always in Omaha, and you kind of associate it. Some people think it's a good idea to associate the NCAA tournament with one city.
Yeah.
So there's been talk about that over the last few years. And a lot of people love coming to Indy for the event because with the way things are placed in terms of the facilities, the downtown area, the restaurants, the arena, the stadium, are in close proximity. So, you get down there, you can walk around if the weather's great, especially. So we'll see what happens going forward. But I think they're, like you said, they're just trying to get through this year, and hopefully they can pull it off with the tests and everything. So it's gonna be.
You guys happen to look at the bracket shows and everything?
You know what?
Besides Frank, like I said, he was there. He probably knew the teams that were going to be there and not, so
no.
knew.
I'm not a sit down and watch. I mean, I did as a coach because you were trying to see whether you want to get in.
Oh yeah, well, I could understand that, yeah.
But I'm what they call a Cliff Notes guy. So I don't watch the NBA draft. I don't watch the tournament selection. It's going to be on the ticker very shortly. And I need something quick. I don't need the spiel that everybody's giving their opinion. I just want who's in it, what time they're playing, and let's move on. Or if it's the NBA draft, who got drafted by who. I can read the ticker at any time. So I'm not one of those people that sits in front of TV, watching these tournament selection shows or stuff like that.
Yeah, well, guys, I just want to thank you for doing this. Calvin, I used to love playing against you and your teams. You guys, we used to play hard, but the games were always clean. After the games, we always would talk. You were a really good player, really underrated wing player. We had a lot of respect for you.
Appreciate that.
Oh man, you were a good player. And as Derrick said, everyone got buckets against Robinson, but you got more than your share. Frank, we were in awe of you. I mean, you were the point guard. It was you and Tommy. And the rest of us were trying to be like, he always carried yourself so well. And even, obviously after high school, you kept doing the same thing. I think we might've run into each other at one of Oliver's events, because, Gerald was best man at my wedding. So I'm good friends with those guys. But I've always been so, proud that I played against you, because you're such a, good athlete and a good dude. And Derrick and I played so many games together. He was just an amazing competitor. And then, it's too bad I never beat him in high school, but he was always such a good guy. And his dad was amazing coach, great guy. And also his sister was a really good player too for Lee. I don't know if you guys knew that. She definitely was a solid lefty. So, but anyway, guys, we can stay on. I'm gonna wrap this part of it up just so it'll tighten this up.